and presenting today. So to go through our agenda for today, we're going to start with an introduction to why we chose "Who are our clients" as the theme of this year's report from our CEO and co-founder, Taejun Shin, followed by a presentation on the highlights from the impact report by me and my colleague Yoshi. And after our presentation, we're going to have some concluding thoughts from Ignacio Mas-Ribo, who joined our board this year as an outside director. Ignacio's name will probably be familiar to you, to many of you, as he's been in the financial inclusion and digital finance space for a long time. He's a co-founder of the Digital Frontiers Institute, a senior fellow at the Fletcher School's Council on Emerging Market Enterprises at Tufts University, and he previously worked at the Gates Foundation and CGAP. Unfortunately, however, he's actually not able to join us live today, so we've pre-recorded a message from him, which we'll play after the main presentation. As we go along today, please feel free to use the Q&A function to share questions with us at any time. We'll try to answer as many as possible as we go along or in the Q&A session at the end. Right. We're going to start with an introduction from Taejun on why we chose "Who are our clients" as the theme of this year's report.
Yeah, thank you, Cheriel, and hi, everyone. So I'm Taejun Shin, co-founder and the CEO of the company. Let me spend maybe a few minutes to explain who we are and why we chose this topic. So the Gojo is a microfinance holding company doing a business, the microfinance, especially microcredit, in 5 countries as of today. Serving roughly 1.8 million households in these countries. And we just issued our fourth impact report in July 2023. Some of you are, I think, joining from Japan, and you might wonder where is the Japanese version, and Japanese version is now under the translation, and it will be issued hopefully by the end of this month. So again, the main question is who are our clients, right? And then some of you might think that it's very obvious question, right? If you come across any microfinance companies, quite often the narrative is that, okay, we provide the loans, which is called microcredit for low-income households in developing countries, and that they're using this money for business. It's not lying. However, actually the reality is much more complex and contextual. Let me briefly explain why we started to look for or to study to understand who our clients. So in 2012, we made a very conscious decision, which is we decided to place social performance management and impact measurement at the very heart of our business. The reason was that last year we started our IPO preparation, and we thought that we were inclined to care more about business and financials, but we were established to make an impact. So we just wanted to balance it, and that is why we started to strengthen our social performance management and impact measurement function. Gojo, the company name, is coming from 5 East Asian values, and the first value is empathy, and this is stand by clients. So without fully understanding the clients, we cannot serve them better. So we invested our time and resources in Financial Diaries project. Some of you might be familiar with the project, and the Financial Diaries are a research methodology developed by our former Impact Committee Chair, Stuart Rutherford, who just recently stepped down as he turned 80 years. So this Financial Diary is a record of all transactions of the respondents, and it shows the true picture of how low-income households spend their money. And many impact reports in the world they just draw very beautiful or beautified or sensationalized pictures of their customers. As we all know about life, that is not the reality, right? So we adhere to the truth, which is one of our principles, and then so that we can really understand who our clients are, how they are spending their money, what kind of challenges they are facing. And all these things are very important to understand or to think about the better services for these low-income households in developing countries. And so, for those who come across this kind of topic for the first time, it might be a little bit confusing, but I really hope that you enjoy our session. Today, Cheriel, our impact measurement lead, and Yoshi, who is leading our research and development initiative, will walk you through the gist of our impact report, followed by Q&A sessions. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Taejun. Now we're going to get started on sharing our impact report. So just before that, I'm going to share a quick overview of Gojo's business for anybody who's new to Gojo. We were founded in 2014 with the vision of creating a world where everyone can determine their own future. Our mission is to extend financial inclusion across the globe, and our long-term goal is to provide high-quality, affordable financial services to 100 million clients in 50 countries by 2030. Our business model is to raise funds from like-minded investors and channel them into new and current group companies which are aligned with our mission. We identify and invest in financial service providers which are aligned with our mission and which serve low to medium income people in developing countries, eventually aiming to take a majority stake. At the same time, we also support group companies to scale up and improve their services by negotiating debt funding for them, improving their governance processes, implementing new technologies such as core banking systems, and using data such as from financial diaries and surveys to learn about clients' outcomes and experiences. Currently, we have 8 group companies in 5 countries: India, Tajikistan, Myanmar, Cambodia, and Sri Lanka, and 6 of these companies are majority owned by Gojo. As of March this year, we had 1.7 million loan and remittance clients and over 300,000 savings clients, of which around 72% had voluntary savings accounts. Gojo has historically had high proportions of female and rural clients because of our group companies' focus on typically underserved populations. And in our 60 decibels microfinance index survey this year, 44% of respondents said that they were accessing finance through our group companies for the first time. I'm gonna now talk through the data sources that we use for our impact report. So at Gojo, we have 2 primary aims for our impact measurement. Firstly, to understand the extent to which we are achieving our vision, mission, and long-term goal. And secondly, to understand the reality of our clients' lives, as Taejun said, so that we can serve them better and increase our impact. Over the past few years, we've worked to come closer to the reality of who our clients are by cultivating and learning from the 3 main data sources listed on this slide. Firstly, core banking system data from group companies, meaning primarily loan application and transaction data. Secondly, survey data, including client satisfaction survey and impact survey data, such as 60 decibels microfinance index. And last but not least, our own financial diary data from Cambodia, Sri Lanka, and now also the Hushipara diaries in Bangladesh. So to give a brief overview of the Cambodia financial diaries, our diarists are from 5 provinces in Cambodia for a total of 149 households. The project ran for almost exactly 1 year from October 2021 to October 2022, and it was funded by JICA Cambodia. I'll now hand over to my colleague Yoshi to describe the methodology of the diaries.
Yep. So in Cambodia financial diaries, enumerators make 2-3 phone calls per week to record diaries' daily transactions. They ask questions like, how much did you earn today? or how much did you spend on what? And then put all this information together into the data. When there are significant expenses, they ask about how diaries got the money for it, if there is no corresponding income. Since many people use microfinance, we find a lot about MFI loans here.
Now, for the Sri Lanka financial diaries, we were a little bit more ambitious in terms of geographical area. And as you can see, we cover 9 areas in Sri Lanka from the very north to the south. We have fewer participants in this project, a total of 95 households. And the big difference between the Sri Lanka diaries and the Cambodia diaries is that the methodology is by self-recording. The Sri Lanka diaries started around the same time as the Cambodia diaries in November 2021, and we are still running them today. We're self-funding them and working with a local research agency called Sparkwind Research. Now, over to Yoshi to tell us a bit more about the methodology.
Yes, in the Sri Lanka financial diaries themselves record their daily transactions by entering details such as how much they earn and spend in their notebook, paper notebook each day. An enumerator visit the diaries once a week and take a photo of the notebook, and then you put this information into a spreadsheet. Okay, and the key difference between Sri Lanka and Cambodia diaries is a consistency and quality of the data from one diaries to the next. In Cambodia diaries, since data was collected through phone calls, the scope of what was recorded and the quality of data tend to be uniform across all diaries. In Sri Lanka diaries, the scope of what diaries considered to be relevant for the financial diaries varies from slightly different from person to person. But at the same time, we are able to collect tiny, small details that are not present in Cambodia diaries, such as exact quantity of eggs or flour the diaries bought and for how much money.
So today, we'd like to share and discuss our top 5 highlights from our work over the past year, as shared in the impact report. The first 3 are about impact measurement, and the last 2 are about social and environmental performance. Our top finding from this year's impact report was that we estimate around 76% of our clients earn, on average, between $7 and $9 in purchasing power parity. That's purchasing power parity, not nominal currency, per capita per day. We have been doing this analysis of client income in comparison to the World Bank poverty lines internally for several years now. But this was the first year that we've actually shared the analysis in our impact report, because thanks to digital transformation efforts across the group, for the first time this year, we were able to gather reliable digitized loan application data from almost all clients in all majority-owned group companies. Now, the World Bank's new international poverty lines are $215, $365, and $685 purchasing power parity per capita per day. So what this means is that most of our clients actually earn above the poverty line, but not very much above the line. Income of this level tells us that Gojo's typical client is not someone who does casual or irregular labor for a daily wage, because these people tend to be poorer, but an entrepreneur who has a micro or small-sized business of their own. What we now know about our typical client, as we will see from this slide, is that even though they are not technically under the poverty line, they still experience the same kind of income instability and uncertainty which poorer households face, and which make it necessary to manage their money actively with loans, savings, and remittances. I'm going to turn over to Yoshi to talk through this graph.
Yep. Here's an example of income management in a Cambodian household in our target segment. These households are relatively higher income among our diarists, with an average household income in this period of $19 per capita per day. Their income from October 2021 to August 2022 is made up of three main sources. One, sales of agricultural product by wife, and two, daily wage earned by the husband who does construction work from time to time, and three, remittances from their son who works in Phnom Penh City. We see that amount they earn from week to week is unstable, and they experienced two periods of particularly low income in December 2021 and June 2022, where they earn almost nothing from agricultural sales and have to rely instead on remittances from their son and a large job carried out by the husband. Things start to get better for them in August 2022, when they appear to have started business selling fish, vegetables, and meat, and begin to see both large and steadier inflows. Although their average income is well above the poverty line, they spend 2 months of the year living under the $6.85 poverty line. In October 2022, their highest earning month, they earned $1,802. In their lowest month, they earn just $99.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. All right, here we go.
Yes. In my screen? Oh, okay.
Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Everyone can see the screen? Great.
Me, yes. Yeah.
Okay. These fluctuations in income are typical of our client group, especially as the vast majority of our clients are either self-employed business owners or farmers. People who experience this kind of instability are vulnerable to shocks and are often one major illness or one natural disaster away from poverty. Loans, savings, and remittances can help reduce their vulnerability by enabling them to move money through space and time to manage sudden needs or to put money away for whenever they might need it. The second finding we want to share is that looking at income increases is, simply put, a bad way to quantify the value of a loan. A common narrative, as Taejun mentioned, which has been used to sell microfinance to donors and investors over the years, is that microfinance helps low-income people start or expand businesses to generate more income. If this is the main utility of microfinance, then we should expect to see returning clients' income increase from one loan cycle to the next. But this way of thinking assumes that income generation is firstly the main purpose for which microfinance loans are used, and secondly, that income generation equals income increase. When we started looking into this, we found that these assumptions actually sometimes don't hold true. We used the Hersheyparra diaries data to look at the longitudinal relationship between loans taken and income, and found that out of 240 loans taken by Hersheyparra diarists, for which the declared purpose to the MFI or the bank was income generation, only 30% were actually used for income generating purposes. The remaining 70% were used for other purposes, such as funding a wedding or paying for medicine or upgrading houses. Next, we compared the number of relatively large loans taken by each diarist over the period of the project, ranging from 0 loans to 32 loans, to the change in their average monthly income from the start of the Hersheyparra diaries in 2015 to the end of 2022. And we found basically no relationship either way. There are, of course, many other ways to analyze the relationship between loans and income, so it's possible that if we tried a different approach, we may have found something significant. But our overall feeling about this is that it makes sense when we consider two truths about microfinance clients and the way that they use loans. Firstly, that income generation is not the only outcome from a loan which clients value. For us as investors and MFIs, I think we often tend to make a value judgment between income generating and non-income generating loans, which clients themselves might not necessarily agree with. To clients, yes, a business has value in terms of expected future cash flows. A house also has value in terms of dignity and comfort. Or, to share another example that we saw in the Cambodia diaries, a good set of speakers for playing music may have value in terms of personal pleasure, or one's ability to contribute to community entertainments. I suspect that our clients may not see a clear hierarchy between the value created by a business investment and the value created by paying for something to improve one's quality of life. Secondly, we need to keep in mind that a lot of income-generating loans are not actually used to increase income, but simply to keep income flowing. Many farmers who make up a large proportion of Gojo's clients, for example, use seasonal loans as working capital to purchase inputs such as seeds and fertilizer upfront, and then pay it back later on with the proceeds from the harvest. So going back to the original headline, it's maybe a little bit provocative to say that measuring income increase is a bad way to quantify the value of a loan. I think our real takeaway from this is that income increase should not be used as an impact measure for all loans, and certainly not for all microfinance. Our third key takeaway from the report is about savings. There's a misconception that poor people don't have enough money to save. Through our 3 financial diary projects in Cambodia, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, we have been able to observe numerous ways in which poor people do and don't save. One of our most striking observations from the Cambodia financial diaries was that hardly anyone saved in the bank. Formal save, when we look at the data from the N-Line survey, only four people in the whole diary sample had any savings in the bank. Many more people had savings in the form of livestock or jewelry. Looking at the transaction data from the project, saving in community groups, also known as roskas, was popular in the diaries, in the Cambodia diaries as well. We noted 588 transactions made by 30 diarists with community savings groups over the course of the project, of which 266 alone were made by 2 very, very enthusiastic savers who saved almost every day with community groups for a certain period. What this told us was that actually formal savings weren't working for people in the Cambodia financial diaries. And we think that this is because most of them earn in cash, and the main formal financial institutions they transact with are MFIs. Most MFIs in Cambodia are not allowed to take voluntary deposits. So the people in the diaries were not able to save at the institutions that they transacted most frequently with. Instead, let me move on to some other models that we have seen working well in other countries for savings. One model that we have seen working well, even for extremely poor people, is a daily deposit collector model, as seen here in Bangladesh, where an MFI employee visits clients every day in their homes or workplaces to collect savings. We also tried a savings till experiment in the Sri Lanka financial diaries, where diarists were offered the option of a clay till and a wooden till, and they could choose to receive as many as they wanted of each. The wooden till with a key proved overwhelmingly popular, with some people requesting 4, 5, or even 6 tills. In Sri Lanka's difficult economic climate last year, the tills proved to be even more useful to diarists than we originally expected. I'm going to let Yoshi talk us through this graph about the savings.
Yes. So this graph compiles savings-related transactions in Sri Lanka financial diaries from July to December 2022. The upper blue line chart represents the numbers deposited, while the lower red line chart represents numbers withdrawn. And additionally, the upper blue bar chart shows the amount deposited, and the lower red bar chart shows the amount withdrawn. So we distributed savings tiers to each diarist in November 2022. And following this distribution, the numbers of savings deposited transactions surged and remain at a high level. While this graph includes relatively fewer bank transactions, and the frequent and small-scale contribution to savings still stand out when compared to those amounts.
While this graph stops in December last year, when we visited the Sri Lanka diarists in July this year, we found that almost everybody was still using the savings tills even more actively than we had realized, as some people were saving and using money from their tills, but not recording it in their diaries. Some people used their tills to build up lump sums to pay for shop rent or to invest in new business ideas, while others saved whatever loose change they had every day and used it to buy groceries on days when they couldn't get any work. What we see from our diary projects is that far from not having enough money to save, low-income people are actually highly motivated to save when they have a variety of easily accessible and trustworthy ways of doing so. Now, to move on to the social and environmental performance part of our presentation, as you probably know, our impact report covers not only Gojo's impact measurement activities, but also social and environmental performance, including client protection. So in the next 2 points, we wanted to briefly highlight some points from the report about client protection and environmental impact, starting with complaints mechanisms. So Gojo's SPM team did a lot of work redesigning complaints mechanisms for group companies, particularly for our group company in Myanmar, Myfida, last year. Through this process, we gained a whole new appreciation for the importance of complaints mechanisms for businesses. Complaints mechanisms are probably one of the business's only ways of receiving spontaneous, unsolicited feedback from customers. They tell you what your customers think is important enough to pick up the phone and call you about. And they're also a way of measuring customer engagement with your business. To what extent do your customers trust you enough to tell you about the issues that they have instead of keeping quiet and quietly switching financial service provider or going to the regulator instead? However, when we participated in the 60 Decibels Microfinance Index survey in March this year, our results showed that across the group, we still have much more room to improve on clients' awareness of complaints in general. There was a question in the survey that asked clients, if a staff member treated you unfairly or harassed you, would you know how to report this behavior? And these are the percentages of respondents in the survey who said that they would not know how to report the behavior. So obviously, as you can see, we felt that we still have a lot of room to improve on clients' awareness of complaints. But encouragingly, Myfida had the best score out of all the group companies on this question. And we think that this is a reflection of Myfida's rollout of the new complaints mechanism prior to the survey, including new posters in all branches that tell clients how they can complain, and welcome calls to all new clients so that they automatically have the call center hotline. When we dug further into the data behind this question and interviewed some clients about this topic, we also discovered that quite often, clients who respond that they don't know how to report poor treatment by staff actually mean that they can't call to mind the exact method or exact phone number right at this moment because they don't have any reasons to complain. However, when we probe further, many people say that if they really needed to complain, they recall that a number is printed on their loan contract or passbook, and they can find it if necessary. What this says to us is that even though the complaints mechanism is really important to us as a business for client protection and also for customer feedback, for clients, the complaints mechanism doesn't always need to be top of mind as long as they know where to go when they need help. In addition to checking for awareness of complaints channels in audits and in client satisfaction surveys, we are also going to be monitoring actual engagement with complaints channels to check that it is at healthy levels. Next, on our environmental impact, this year, for the first time, we calculated and were able to share Gojo's carbon emissions at the holding company level. I'd like to share an overview of how we did this. So we created, this is a screenshot of what our calculator looks like. We created it based on calculators made by the UNFCCC, the US EPA, and the ICAO. The first two calculators I just mentioned primarily cover Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, while the ICAO calculator is made specifically for air travel emissions, which are Scope 3. So as of now, Gojo monitors our holding company emissions from office utilities, consumables, and business travel by air. The way the calculator works is that we input the applicable data in the appropriate unit. For example, to calculate emissions from our electricity bill, we input the amount of electricity consumed in kilowatt hours. Then, our calculator matches the data that we put in with the appropriate carbon emissions factor. In the case of electricity, we sourced the carbon emissions factor for Tokyo from TEPCO, Tokyo's electricity utility company. The output of the calculator is then the kilos of carbon dioxide equivalent. In the future, we are considering expanding the scope of the calculation to include land travel, accommodation during business travel, and emissions from home offices because more than half of Gojo's staff work remotely. We're sharing the methodology with group companies as well, and we're hoping that we can achieve a consolidated carbon emissions calculation across the group in 2 years' time. Part of the reason why I'm sharing this today is that we would love for more financial service providers and holding companies like Gojo to calculate their company's emissions. When we were doing this calculation, it was hard for us to find applicable benchmarks to compare our performance against. And we would love to be able to benchmark our emissions in the sector and collaborate more effectively in addressing climate change as financial service providers together. So if anyone watching this webinar is interested in calculating your carbon emissions, but you're maybe not quite sure where to start, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to talk you through how we did it. All right, so all of the stories that we've shared are interesting and provide lots of food for thought, but I can hear some people in the audience thinking, so what? What does it all mean? Is Gojo having the impact it set out to achieve? So for people who desire a summary, I put together, I thought we could use the impact management project's 5 dimensions of impact to summarize what Gojo has done. The 5 dimensions summarize impact in terms of what is the impact that has occurred, who is experiencing the outcome, how much of the outcome is occurring, what is the contribution of our organization to the outcome, and what is the risk that the outcome we're looking for doesn't occur as expected. So to summarize what we've talked through today, we think that the main outcomes from our services are that, There we go. Are that clients are able to keep their businesses going and buy new assets to improve their quality of life or generate income, and that clients are also able to save money in secure places and receive interest. So as we reviewed just now, our clients are primarily low to medium income micro and small entrepreneurs who experience income instability and uncertainty. Based on our 60 decibels survey results, we think that just under half of them could be considered underserved. And and in terms of Gojo's specific contribution, my take on it is that yes, the outcomes that we're providing to clients might have eventually happened anyway. There are other financial service providers out there. There are other MFIs and banks. It's true. But we believe that Gojo's approach to governance and SPM provides additional oversight that maybe other organizations may not have for responsible finance practices. And I also believe that the incremental addition of another high quality service, another high quality option that clients could potentially turn to when they're considering which services they might like to use, having that incremental addition of another option is also valuable. Now, in terms of risk, I think one risk on a lot of people's minds in the sector right now is the risk of over-indebtedness and aggressive collections. While we don't have any reason to believe that this is a major issue in Gojo Group at the moment, one of the things that we're working on over the next year is to increase our degree of visibility and transparency at the holding company level into exactly how collections are being conducted in the field, and into how we can study and understand the level of over-indebtedness across the group. And also, I don't think that I could finish this session without talking about environmental risk. So we are implementing environmental risk assessments in group companies for loans. And we are also considering that our clients, who are mostly low to medium income rural people, will probably, in developing countries, will probably be some of the people most badly affected by climate change over the next decade. We're also considering how we can support clients to adapt to future climate change. All right. So at this point, that brings me to the end of our presentation. I'd like to share our pre-recorded video from Ignacio, where he shares some concluding thoughts.
On the one hand, well, thank you, Cheriel and team. This report does connect with the thinking I've been developing over many years of practice in this area in very important ways. So it's nice to see, on the one hand, personal confirmation of what I've been thinking for a long time, and second, that Gojo is on a track of really focusing on impact as a key area. I would like to, in these concluding thoughts, I would like to comment on three aspects which are core to your presentation. The question of who we are targeting or should be targeting, the question of what we can offer them, what products would achieve the highest impact for them. But the bigger question really is, why are we doing this? Which goes to the point of how do we measure impact? How do we know that we're on the right track? So those are the three areas I would like to comment on, which follow very directly from your report. On the first point of who, I would like to emphasize that poverty is not, or poverty reduction is not a straightforward business of pushing people across a one-way street of income. What we know from global experience is that a lot of people spend a lot of go in and out of poverty. So we are improving the global numbers on poverty reduction. That doesn't mean that once you cross that threshold, you will not fall back. So so there might be 10 people who have stopped being poor, but 8 may have fallen back. And that's simply because everybody's, people may be one illness away from poverty. There might be an unemployment spell that pushes you back into poverty. So yes, we should be focusing on the income levels that they are in, but that doesn't really tell us the full story of vulnerabilities. We really need to be focusing on those people who have a risk of falling into poverty or are already in poverty. On the issue of what should we be offering? I do believe that finance is basically a set of tools. And like anybody who uses tools, there's never a single tool that does everything. If you're a carpenter or whatever, you need a range of tools because different tools are good at doing different things. finance is no different. So I do think that diversity is very important. And I think globally, and certainly for Gojo as well, the challenge remains on building meaningful savings products for people that can be delivered at scale, low cost and at scale. And here, I would like to comment on the point that was raised in the presentation about community savings being good for people and working well for people. That presents a challenge for formal finance to do better. But that's precisely the challenge. That sets the benchmark that we have to beat in the design of savings products. They need to be at least as good as what they're doing today, which is community-based finance. So I don't see that should be difficult to build, but we certainly have not achieved it. And then there's the question of why. Why are we doing this? And the follow-on question of, well, how do we know that we're on track? And here, I'd like to give you my personal perspective on why we think, or why I think financial inclusion is important for people. And for me, it basically answers questions in their minds that are keeping them awake late at night. You can easily imagine the husband and the wife, while their kids are sleeping, discussing three questions. And all financial questions would fall into three categories. The first one is, where's the next dollar going to come from? Knowing no one is guaranteeing you any income. So the first question you have is, where's the next dollar going to come from? The second question you're going to have, and that's really the most basic. Those are probably the poorest people. They don't even know where the next dollar, where and when the next dollar is going to come from. Once you are have a little reassurance on that question, no guarantee, but reassurance, then the next set of questions you will be asking late at night, keeping you awake, is how can I keep on buying the stuff that I'm buying, paying for the stuff that I'm paying? How can I keep on paying school fees for the children so we don't have to pull them out of school? How do I keep on bringing the good food that I bring to the table? Because in our family, we meet once a week, for example. We're that sort of income level family that we can afford once a week. And so I do not want to fail, because that's psychologically a big hit. How can I keep on doing what I'm doing? And I think that's very important, because I think progress is you being able to promise yourself and your family certain things. That's what defines progress. Progress is not more income. Income is just a means for being able to promise yourself and your family certain things. So how can I keep on is an important thing. And falling back into poverty basically is failing on that score. And then the third big question is, of course, okay, I'm fairly comfortable where the next dollar is going to come from. I feel fairly comfortable we're going to be able to keep on doing what we're doing. But what if? What if my daughter gets sick and we need to go to the hospital? What if I break my leg and cannot work? So these are the very human questions that everybody's asking themselves. And everybody in the audience probably is doing one of these questions as well. So for me, that's what financial inclusion is going to give you, a little bit of reassurance in answering these questions. So ultimately, financial inclusion is a subjective matter. Is it providing the reassurance that people need to carry on optimistically through their lives or not? So for me, financial inclusion is mostly a confidence building exercise, that I don't have to worry about these things, or I have to worry less about these things. Therefore, I can be more forward-looking in my decision-making. I can invest a little bit more in my micro-enterprise because the basics are already assured. So yes, we have to measure impact in quantitative ways, but there's no single measure that comes even close to tracking what I've been talking about, these subjective matters. I mean, yeah, more nutrition at the table, more income. It really is a very poor summing up of the broader purpose of financial inclusion. So I think we have to carry out the quantitative measures, but also do a lot of these subjective measures as well.
Great. Thank you very much to Ignacio. So what Ignacio says about being able to promise yourself things, and about people having a greater sense of control over their lives makes me think of how in the impact measurement team at Gojo, we often talk about the importance of offering options to clients. One thing that we say to each other a lot is that vulnerable people like our clients don't make bad choices. The choices that they have are bad. When people have a wide variety of high-quality options for moving money through time and space, they gain a greater sense of control over their lives. And this, in turn, is what will enable us to achieve Gojo's vision, a world where everyone can determine their own future. On that note, I'd like to move to the discussion. So I see that there are already lots of questions in the Q&A box. Eru, would you like to prompt us with a question?
Yes, okay, thank you everybody for the questions. To start off, the first question will be the following. How has the nuanced understanding with your clients informed Gojo's strategy?
Great, thank you very much. Taejun, do you want to take this one?
Okay, yeah, I will take it. So yeah, we had a good debate internally. First, how to understand the results of this financial diaries project and how we do with it, or what we do with it. Three things. So due to some, the regulatory reasons, our main business right now is microcredit. And then what we really have to understand is that, the microcredit is useful for very specific purposes. Sometimes small loans for money management for non-entrepreneurial poor people could be useful, and also business loans for business owners that would be useful. But it is useful for very specific the situation, so we should be mindful of that. That's one learning. Second is a more inclination toward savings. So savings can provide many the pretty good money management tools for these people. So, but in some countries, it is very difficult to do, the deposit taking. But just recently, we updated our investment policy, noting that it's always good to have deposit taking license organization to partner with, such that we can increase the number of saving customers. I think in a few years' time, you will see, when you see our impact report 3 years later, I think the number of savers will increase, will have increased considerably. And then thirdly, we just started the new research about what kind of new services are really impactful, especially in digital space. And these days I'm spending, the forenoon time in Japan, such that I can think about these services. So yeah, these are what we are doing as of now.
And just to add to what Taejun said from the impact measurement team, we also, of course, want to increase savings mobilization and uptake of savings in the deposit-taking companies we do have in the group. So based on what we've learned from the financial diaries about how people save, we are working on developing and testing some new product and service ideas for savings, which we're hoping to pilot in partnership with some of our group companies. Okay, for the next question, someone asked, what is the difference and what is the reason behind the difference in methodology of the two financial diaries projects? Yoshi, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah. Let me try quickly. So probably, I think Sri Lanka is a kind of an exception. Exceptionally, the people's literacy level is exceptionally high. So almost everybody can read and write. That's the reason why we could try self-recording style in Sri Lanka. And the benefit of this self-recording style, I think, is very clear. So we can look at the diarist perspective of the world. That's the benefit. And of course, it's harder to compile it into the clean data, but this is the reason.
Yes, and I think it's also simply that as we were working on developing the project, we simply had two different research questions. One was that we wanted to, the Cambodia project was the first project that we conceptualized. And so we wanted to use that simply to see how financial diaries could be used as a form of impact measurement. And because of that, we chose, for the sample, we deliberately chose 50% non-borrowers, 50% microfinance borrowers, because we wanted to see what the difference in their lives was. For the Sri Lanka project, we had a much bigger focus on savings, as you can see from the savings tills. And we just wanted to try something different. There are many ways of doing financial diaries, and we wanted to try a different methodology. So we decided to go with self-reporting. Okay. For the next question, Victor asks, firstly, are group companies offering to clients financial literacy or education programs to do, for instance, budgeting, separation of business and personal expenses, interest rate and compounding rate understanding, and so on? Secondly, regarding the savings that clients can have, do group companies offer them advice or products that can produce higher returns for them? For instance, contributing to a micro pensions program. Okay, so for the first question, I think that the idea of offering financial education to microfinance clients has been around for a long time. And to some extent, all group companies do it when they go through the orientation process with clients, but at a very sort of small level. They just kind of talk through, the client's business plan, make sure the cash flows make sense, and tell them about how they're supposed to use their loan and so on. If we're talking more about, a kind of more focused curriculum that is separate from the loan application process, then we have actually recently launched a project called Pasio in Sri Lanka with our partner company Sejaya, where we're delivering financial literacy support and advice to people over WhatsApp groups. We've also divided people into different interest subgroups within that financial literacy community, such as animal husbandry, household money management, and so on. So that's a new thing that we're trying, and we're developing sort of bite-sized curriculum that can be shared over WhatsApp for this. We're working on rolling it out as well in different countries. And for your second question, regarding the savings that clients can have, do group companies offer them advice or products that can produce higher returns for them? To the best of my knowledge, maybe Taejun, you know better than me, but to the best of my knowledge, not really at the moment. I think that in general, actually, one issue that we've had across group companies is how to make savings more convenient and more accessible for people, because in general, actually, the typical savings balance in group companies is pretty low. The average is skewed by some people who save a lot, so by outliers who save a lot. So I think that this is not just in Gojo, but actually this is an issue experienced by a lot of deposit-taking MFIs around the world. But we have been thinking about how to make savings more convenient and more accessible for people, and that's where the product ideas that I was talking about just now come in. Taejun, do you want to add to that?
Oh yeah, so the Ignazi and then some of us started a discussion with Fumo in Tajikistan to make our savings programs much more convenient and useful, mainly for the convenience purpose. That we are making discussion for this purpose mainly, not for money making. I think that is one very important thing, which is if your saving is small, yes, the the 15% return, 20% return might make a difference, but the absolute amount of the difference might be small. So it's more impactful, we believe, if we focus on how we really can make sure that our clients can save more easily.
Thank you. Right. Next, let's go to Jürgen's question. He asks, I have a question on Cambodia. Did your surveys identify and how the main issues of over-indebtedness and collateral that put Cambodia so much into a bad light recently? So surprisingly, so we did a bit of analysis on this. We looked at how many financial institutions people in the diaries were repaying at any one time in the survey, at any one time throughout the financial diaries. And actually, the vast majority, I can't remember how many exactly right now, but the vast majority of diarists were actually only repaying maybe about 2 loans concurrently, which is well within the National Bank of Cambodia's guidelines. We did, however, see some outliers, such as the diarist whose income chart we shared earlier in the presentation, diarist 180, is repaying, is the single most indebted household in the project. They are repaying a total of, Yoshi, correct me if I'm wrong, 8
Yes, 8
concurrently. Yes. And we simply don't understand how this is possible because they only have 2 adults in the household. So we don't quite understand how they have managed to accumulate 8 loans, but I think it's some combination of restructuring and COVID, and possibly also borrowing through other people. What we see, to answer Jürgen's question, actually the instances of over-indebtedness that we see in the sample are very few. But what we can see from the 1 or 2 examples of over-indebtedness that we see in the survey are that, yes, they're having a very hard time. What we see in our analysis is them, even though in the period they're repaying a total of 8 MFIs, in any given month, they only repay maybe 3 or 4 at a time. So what they're doing is they're probably repaying the people who ask for it most insistently at any one point in time, and they try to juggle the payments between all the financial service providers, kind of skipping whichever payments that they can, so that they can manage all 8 at the same time. I can imagine that it's a very hard life for them. But we didn't see any examples in the diaries of collateral being seized.
Let me add to that. I think in Cambodia, over-indebted segment is relatively higher income, middle to higher income segments, because of the interest receding of the country, the ticket size that typically microfinance institutions offer tend to be bigger. And then the only bigger income households can afford these microfinance loans provided by some microfinance institutions. So whenever I come across super over-indebted households, sometimes they are not lowest income people. They are like middle, I mean, in that standard, their income level is quite often higher than median. And that is not overlapping with our, I think, the respondent segment. That might be one reason.
Okay, next, we're almost at time, but maybe we can quickly do one last question. Kensuke asks, other than the countries where we've done financial diaries, have we considered implementing a similar survey in other countries? also understand that customer segment will be varied country by country. Yoshi, do you want to answer?
Probably, I think you you can go.
Sure. Okay. So, yes, we are always thinking about new research possibilities, but I think that any new survey that we implement needs to be driven by what we want to learn, and what we want to learn needs to justify the amount that we spend on it. So, what we are thinking about, so we've learned a lot from the Cambodia and Sri Lanka diaries about how to run a good financial diaries project, how to get good data quality, and what is the best use of financial diary data for a business like Gojo. So we are thinking, so our view at the moment is that probably the best use of a financial diaries project for a business like Gojo is to partner with one of our group companies to pilot test a product or service and watch how among the financial diary group, and watch how they react to it and how they use it over time. So we're thinking at the moment about which countries we can do that most productively in, and what services it's most useful to pilot. We don't have any decisions yet, which is why I can't share any concrete country names. Okay, I think that's all the questions we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining our webinar. When you leave the webinar, there is a survey, a very quick survey of 2 questions. So please take the time to answer our questions. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good night.
Thank you.